I have to say this, and I'll sit down. Back during slavery, when black people like me talked to the slaves, they didn't kill him. They'd send some old house Negro along behind him to undo what he said. You have to read the history of slavery to understand this. There were two kinds of Negroes. There was that old house Negro and the field Negro. And the house Negro always looked out for his master. When the field Negroes got too much out of line, he held them back in check. He put them back on the plantation. The house Negro could afford to do that because he lived better than the field Negro. He ate better, he dressed better, and he lived in a better house. He lived right up next to his master in the attic or the basement. He ate the same food his master ate and wore his same clothes. And he could talk just like his master. Good diction. And he loved his master more than his master loved himself. That's why he didn't want his master hurt. If the master got sick, he'd say, "What's the matter, boss? We sick?" He was as sick as the master. When the master's house caught a fire, he'd try and put the fire out. He didn't want his master's house burned. He never wanted his master's property threatened. And he was more defensive of it than the master was. That was the house Negro. But then you had some field Negroes who lived in huts, had nothing to lose. They wore the worst kind of clothes. They ate the worst food. And they caught hell. They felt the sting of the lash. They hated their master. Oh, yes, they did. If the master got sick, they prayed that the master died. If the master's house caught a fire, they prayed for a strong wind to come along. This was the difference between the two. And today you still have house Negroes and field Negroes. Yeah.
If you don't understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will confuse you. That's a guarantee. That's not optional.
Wait, is it on?
It's on. Go.
Welcome to another episode of Politics, Economics, and the Struggle to Survive in America, episode 61.
Don't have a seat, big man. All right, welcome back. Welcome back, world. And welcome to another episode. And as you may see, I brought my 6-year-old son. His name is Gerald President II.
Today the leader, tomorrow the leader for a video. It's my dad.
Thank you, Gerald. And once again, this is Politics, Economics, the Struggle to Survive in America. I'm your host. My name is Gerald President. This is Gerald President II. And what I wanted to start with today was Malcolm X's speech in 1963. And what he was talking about was the house nigger and the field nigger, or the house slave and the field slave, or however you decide that you want to interpret it. But he was explaining how we conducted ourselves under the system of white supremacy and the oppression that we was faced with every second of our life and existence here on this North American continent. And the reason why I started off with Malcolm X or El-Hajj Malik Shabazz, because what he stated and what he said then is extremely important as we continue down this path of the 21st century and this new election that's upon us. Now, we just had what was called Super Tuesday, where we had 14 states, and they had primaries and caucuses to determine who was going to be the Democratic candidate for president. And they went to South Carolina on Saturday. Now, South Carolina is one of the poorest states in the United States of America. It's the first state to secede during its rebellion against the federal government, Abraham Lincoln's federal government, because of so-called abolishing and getting rid of slavery in America, which they never did, but that's another story. And while in South Carolina, the third ranking Democrat in the United States Congress, and the third person that's next in line behind Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer, is Jim Clyburn, or better known as Fish Fry Jim. Because every time election time comes, he has these gigantic fish fries, especially when it comes for the president, and he wants you to come and mingle. Now, I want you to understand something about Fish Fry Jim. Jim's district that he represents in South Carolina is the poorest in South Carolina. And when Malcolm X talked about that house nigga, or the house nigga inside the home with master saying, boss, we good, boss, we sick. And when he said that he would rather put out the master's house fire than his own, well, Jim Clyburn represents that to the fullest. Jim Clyburn is what you call a modern day Sambo. Now, for those that don't understand Uncle Tom's Cabin, I think it was Mary Beecher Stowe's novel. Sambo would do anything Simon Legree wanted, which was the master. And because Uncle Tom refused to tell where the slaves went, Sambo beat him. Well, in reality, Jim Clyburn is a Sambo. He's not an Uncle Tom, he's a Sambo. Always remember, Uncle Tom was the hero. Sambo was the one who would do anything to stay in the good graces of master. And this past weekend, Mr. Clyburn got in front of the TV cameras, and they say he's the most powerful, ranking black Democrat in America. And when he speaks, people listen to him. He meant the elderly people. And his endorsement means a lot, which is why the rest of the field was, groveling to Jim, because they wanted his endorsement. Well, he endorsed Joe Biden. Jim Crow Joe is what he's, referred to as with the good old boys, with, him and Strom Thurmond, making sure that the schools was not integrated, or, 86 crime bill Joe, the crack laws, or 94 crime bill, when they went on this massive prison building spree across America, or Glass-Steagall Joe, when they repealed the Glass-Steagall Act and allowed the investment banks to merge with the commercial banks and the residential banks and all these types of entities that allowed the banking system to destroy the wealth in black communities. Or that bankruptcy bill in 2004 when George Bush was reelected, and how Joe Biden made sure that that bankruptcy bill prevented you from discharging medical debt, credit cards, student loans. Or 2001 Joe with the Patriot Act and his zest to invade Iraq. But this is who Jim Clyburn endorsed. And the amazing thing is, Joe won South Carolina. And when we talk about those house niggas, you always have to understand he would do what was in the best interest for himself, not for the slaves. It was for himself, because he wanted them scraps that master didn't eat, those clothes that master got tired of using. As long as he wasn't out in the fields, he would do whatever it took. So I want you to listen closely to what Jim Clyburn says. Listen very closely to how he endorses Joe Biden, Jim Crow Joe.
And the message is simply thus: making the greatness of this country accessible and affordable for all. We don't need to make this country great again. This country is great.
That's right.
That's not what our challenge is. Our challenge is making the greatness of this country accessible and affordable for all. If it's health care, is it accessible? Is it affordable? Education, is it accessible? Is it affordable? Housing, energy, making it accessible and affordable. And nobody with whom I've ever worked in public life is any more committed to that motto, that pledge that I have to my constituents than Joe Biden. Joe Biden and I used to spend a lot of time doing TV stuff together. We got to know each other. I know Joe. We know Joe. But most importantly, Joe knows us.
That's right. That's right.
That's important.
Did you get that? I know Joe. You know Joe. And most importantly, Joe knows Joe. Let me explain something to you. Joe don't even know who Joe is. We're talking about an individual that is bordering on the line of Alzheimer's, which is why he can't connect a proper sentence together when he's on the stage. See, Fresh Fry Jim Clyburn is the epitome of what a Sambo is. He is the reason why here in America in the 21st century, descendants of slaves can't move forward. I'm going to repeat that again. He is the reason why descendants of slaves can't move forward. He is against reparations. There is not one policy that Jim Clyburn would endorse to repair what was done to the descendants of slaves. That's his own words. He comes up with his 10, 20, 30 scheme to fund the most impoverished communities in America. I want you to understand something. The most impoverished communities in America have always been ours because it was a government policy to make sure that we were deprived and denied access to wealth accumulation assets, i.e. land, resources, capital, green, money. See, Jim, Fresh Fried Jim, is one of those boule, the advisors to the king, to make sure the king understands who are his enemies and who he can bring inside under the bosom of master and allow him to get some of them scraps off the table. See, I need you to understand, the median income in Jim Clyburn's district is $35,000. 60% of his area, 60% of his constituents are African, blacks, descendants of slaves, black people. Yet he does not do anything for the representation of his people. You can watch him on C-SPAN pontificating about we need to do something for these illegal immigrants. We need to do something for everybody except descendants of slaves. And as he endorsed Joe Biden, do you think Joe Biden is going to do anything for the descendants of slaves? I mean, not easy question. Did Barack Hussein Obama do anything for descendants of slaves? Name one president that has. My last episode, episode 60, you saw a plethora of Sambos congregating around Donald Trump, praying, touching him, saying God sent him downhill. Now you got Jim Crow, we'll call him Jim Crow Joe Biden. But we have Jim Clyburn saying that we have to go out there and vote for Jim Crow Joe. Even though Jim Crow Joe is not going to do anything for the descendants of slaves or people who look like myself and my son. We have to be very, 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 very skeptical of these individuals that's still in our midst. The reason we can't move forward is because we have this old guard still down. I'm not going to discredit what he's done to get to this position, but I do need you to understand this one thing. His district was specifically created for individuals such as himself. I think it was in 1990 and 1992, where they created this district to have a majority black district because South Carolina was still under those antebellum South slave codes, black codes, but they disenfranchised the black community. Well, why you think Fish Fry Jim is there? To make sure that the black vote is suppressed. So now they always tell you, you should go and vote for this person. But they never tell you what this person going to do for you. Never, ever. They always say, we have to vote. Your ancestors died for the... No, our ancestors didn't die for us the right to vote. That's not why they died for. They wanted us to be participants and citizens in this nation. Having the right to vote don't mean anything when the president is selected. He's never elected. He's selected by the money interests. And the money interests prop up individuals like Jim Crow, Joe Biden, and, the other orange man. But they need useful idiots such as Fish Fry Jim Clyburn. They need useful idiots like this individual. And now what you're watching is all these other alleged black people going out there and say we got to get behind Joe because we have to beat Trump. Now let me explain something to you. You want me to vote because you don't want Trump in there, but you're not telling me what this individual is going to do specifically for the community that you live in. Because you know why? Because presidents don't ever do anything for the people in those particular communities. It's your representatives, your state rep, your state senator, your state representative. That's their responsibility. But what a congressperson and a senator can do is push legislation and bills to make your life a lot better. And because these individuals are not pushing reparations, and I'm a major proponent, I love to get my comeuppance, those what they proverbial 40 acres and a mule. But we're not going to get them as long as we have these individuals. The Maxine Waters of the world, they try their best. The Barbara Jordans of the world. But when you have these type of black men, you always got to be skeptical of these black men. Because it's the black men that's always been doing the masters, the white supremacists bidding. Now, Fish Fry Jim, he done made sure that his family's taken care of. His relatives are going to get great jobs. But go ask the constituents in South Carolina, what are they going to receive? They're going to receive the same thing they always got, nothing. Yeah, remember, South Carolina is where Dylan Roof walked in their church, the AME church, and murdered 9 parishioners. Where's Jim? Where's Jim Clyburn? Where is he? He's talking about benefiting everyone, not his constituents, everyone. Let me explain something to you. Everyone wasn't a slave. Everyone didn't have slave codes or black codes set up. Everyone didn't have redlining, real legal segregation. That didn't happen to everybody. It happened to the descendants of slaves. But as long as you have samples such as Fish Fry Jim, we're going to always stay in this position. We're going to always stay here until we get rid of these individuals. Once again, Jim Clyburn has always been a traitor. And all of his ilk, those ones that was touching Candace Owens of the world and Diamond and Silks of the world, rubbing Donald Trump's shoulders, and them same ones that was propping up Bill Clinton, and the ones that propped up old Barack Hussein Obama, and the same ones that's pushing, you remember George W. Bush? The reason why we always stay in this position because of these individuals. He was designed this way. It's in his DNA. And when you listen to him, it sounds like somebody from the 20th century, from the 18th century talking. Why is he up there endorsing somebody who's not going to do anything specifically for descendants of slaves? Oh, because he's going to take care of Jim. That's why. Jim, Fresh Fried Jim Clyburn is going to be taken care of. Because he's probably going to get some ambassadorship. His children probably going to get some cush job on K Street. And what's going to happen to the constituents in South Carolina? What's going to happen to constituents in every state across America? Because Joe Biden is not going to win. How could he win? The deck is stacked. And that corrupt Democratic Party is going to make sure that Bernie Sanders, I'm not a Bernie, bro. I don't believe in none of them because they're not doing anything specifically for the descendants of slaves, which I am, which this young man is too. We're the descendants of slaves here on this continent. And before I get off, I wanted to make sure that you see, it starts at home. It don't start when they go in the school system because the school system is going to destroy his capacity to comprehend, which is why it's important that you show your children these these snakes that's amongst us. Because an individual like Jim Clyburn will go out to these kids' schools and they'll say these fancy words, and then they'll go right behind them closed doors with Jim Crow Joe and sign and vote for the 94 crime bill, for welfare reform, for the repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act, for the Patriot Act, for the invasion of foreign countries globally, to prevent you from being able to discharge your debts through the bankruptcy system that, the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump, has utilized 6 times. But hey, I just want to bring back y'all to, I'm feeling good. I'm glad this is a new season. Politics and economics are going to continue to try to get stronger and better and more informative and give you more information. And I just wanted you to see this gentleman right here. These are the future. And it's in our interest to make sure that we fill their brains up with real information about what to expect when they walk out the doors of their homes. And parents, stop lying to your kids. Be honest with them. Don't say they're too young. They're not too young. They comprehend. You have to make sure that you instill it in them that they still have to be participants in the society, because the system is going to be there to design to harm them, which is imperative that you instill in them the capacity to overcome those obstacles. But this is Politics, Economics, the Struggle to Survive in America. You want to say something, Gerald?
It's 2020, everyone.
2020. 2020 is the 21st century. Hey, have a great weekend. Have a great week. Hey, Politics, Economics, the Struggle to Survive in America. I'm your host, Gerald President. Peace.
Peace.
If you don't understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will confuse you. That's a guarantee. That's not optional.